It's a memoir of my years in television. And when it came time for me to select a name for that book, I got thinking of, you don't have to be in TV, but just think how many times in your life you think your script is going to run this way, but then you go off script and say, oh, Maron, how did that happen? Now what? Now what am I going to do? So I titled it TV Memoir, My Scripted and Unscripted Life. Let's face it, we all like to plan from when we're young until now. We're always planning what the future holds for us. But how many times have we been saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the next thing, and then a year from now, put your ear to the sky, and what do you hear? Laughter. The big guy upstairs says, oh, so that's what you're planning to do, huh? That's what you want to do. It sounds like a good plan, but let's see. My dad's plan was, yep, I'm going to grow up, take over the pharmacy. We lived over the drugstore. Remember the old days before all the CVS's, you actually had your neighborhood pharmacy? That was us up in Scranton. My mother, being a good Catholic Italian mom, you know what she wanted me to be? A priest! See what happened. So I go to Boston University, 1974 BC, before computers. And I'm majoring in broadcast journalism because my father said, you should do something respectful, get into news or that, but you don't want to be I wanted to be a morning man on the radio. You know, I wanted to be a personality on the radio. That was my dream. So I was at the campus radio station, and I was Big Daddy Pags on the radio. And the guy who followed me was this awkward, tall, kind of my size, not as heavy, but a big, tall, lanky Jewish kid from Long Island, who, we didn't get paid, but they kicked him off the campus station because he was doing racial and sex humor. I don't know whatever happened to him, but his name is Howard Stern. So one day, I'm going to check the mail to see maybe I got something, and I see CBS New York. I go, oh my goodness, I would never apply to CBS in New York, but it wasn't addressed to me, it was addressed to my mother. Mom, did you enter a contest and you know CBS New York? She goes, oh, I'll open that later. I go, no, let's look at it now. She opens it. Dear Mrs. Pagnotti, thank you for your recent letter. I am sure your son Tony is very bright, hardworking, and would love to work with me. However, his qualifications do not meet our standards here. Respectfully signed, Walter Cronkite, CBS News. I'm going to go to North Carolina. What could go wrong, right? Didn't listen to my parents, you know, they could have told you so. But anyway, I leave my fiance home until we're going to have a one-day honeymoon because the station told me in May they couldn't give me more than 2 days off. So we had a one-day honeymoon. But I get there, and Billy Joe, Jim Bob, and the cast of everyone else is there. And I think I was going into Burger King, McDonald's. When you're making $4 an hour, that's your morning, noon, and night go-to. And Billy Joe, Jim Bob, it looks like they're high school kids, and they turn out to be. They said, hey, you're that Tony Pagnotti on TV. You're Italian, aren't you? Yeah, I'm Italian. And I go, do you like pizza? Is your kid in the mafia? And all the stereotypes coming back to roost. Yeah, no, I don't have any mafia, I do like pizza, etc. So they go, you know what, we have a shop teacher at our high school, Mr. Giordano, he's Italian. Do you think you could teach us something that we could say, tell him and impress him? Yeah. I said, tomorrow I want you first to, I go, we use our hands a lot in Italian. So I want you, this is really impressive. Go and say, hi, Mr. Giordano, and first do this. And then do this. Until I got home one day, and I hear on my voicemail machine, this is Bob Davis at WNBC TV in New York. We just saw a tape of yours you sent a year ago. I even forgot I had sent it. We'd like to bring you in for an interview. Oh my goodness. So I go a week later to 30 Rock, and I'm thinking, I just left a trailer in Waterbury. Now I'm going into an elevator, and I'm riding up in the elevator like a little kid, and I'm looking up, and there Jane Pauley, Brian Gumbo, Willard Scott, blah. And I'm live narrating the earlier footage, and I'm narrating it as such, and I'm walking along, and I'm going like this, and then all of a sudden, I feel a hand in my back pocket. I'm being pickpocketed. I'm being pickpocketed on live television. So my reflex was I grabbed the back of my pants, and as I do, the hand flees, but they didn't get the wallet. So I thought, okay, I made that. So what happened is when we would finish the news, there was a place on 49th and 6th, right at the bottom of 30 Rock, called Hurley's Pub, and we would always gather there to tell our war story, so to speak. So I'm there with the rest of the crew saying, you're not going to believe it, I'm down there, blah, 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 so take my wallet. So there's this veteran reporter, Bob T, and he goes, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, Tony, but he was at a live shot a year ago, and he said similar situations surrounded. All of a sudden, he feels a hand not going to his wallet, but toward the family jewels. Okay, I said, and then what happened? And then he said, I said, what did you do? He goes, I go, hi, this is Bob. Forget about the knowledge of the weather. Did you ever try to, for instance, this is a green screen. You're in the studio and the weather person is watching peripherally the TV screen of him here, there. There's nothing here. So can you imagine pointing to a map and saying, and the high pressure, and meanwhile in Alabama, wait, no. So I was practicing in front of a green screen before I went on the air, thinking, oh my God, how do they do it? It's like, you're pointing to nothing. So my maiden voyage, I go on, and I thought, gee, it went pretty well. And they came to me and they said, you know what? We like it. We like it. Would you be interested in almost doubling your salary and being the second weather guy? Sign me up, because I figured as weather, they couldn't send me to the murders and the death and destruction, and I could be a weather guy. So things, are going great, and then all of a sudden, they told me within a month they were going to finalize everything. So it was nothing etched in stone. So they come to me in 2 weeks after that, and they say, we have a slight change of plans. And I found out I wasn't in the plan. our consultants, and consultants are these guys who come in from somewhere else and then tell a TV station what they should do, have said that our weekend lineup, which I would be a part of, is all too white, and we need minority representation for weather. And unless you're from Sicily and can prove you've got some type of African American or Mediterranean roots, which I have roots, but wasn't going to fit the bill, they said, so we're going in another direction. You can go back to the streets until my reporter contract will expire. So I started asking around, and I went to the general manager and said, well, in the meantime, while you're searching for this weatherman, can I at least be doing? He goes, oh yeah, he goes, but we've already made him an offer, and I think he's going to take it. Are you ready for the third name that you've heard before? Who wants to guess? Al Roker! Al Roker! I was out of work, so we had to sell the condo. I was going through a divorce, and I put all my worldly belongings that I got after we agreed on what I was taking and what she was taking. It could all fit in my car. It was like a TV, a lamp. There's a station in Baltimore. I go, I don't want to go to Baltimore. Now listen, you got to get out of that house. They're going to fly you there. They're going to put you up. It's just getting you out of the house. You really have to start thinking about working again. So she goes, what do you have to lose? I go, all right. So Channel 2 in Baltimore. I get here. This is 1985. Actually, it was 40 years ago this past January. So yeah, 1985. And the news director said, yeah, we like your work, and we think we could use you with, I go, he's talking about news. I go, look, I'm not going to do another news story in my life. I said, I don't want to do any reporting. All I really want to do, I got into this business because I want to do positive things. He goes, well, we can't guarantee, we can have you maybe do some of that. I go, no. I go, thanks for having me here. I said, but I wouldn't be interested. He goes, well, let's go out for dinner. We hit it off because he actually was from Asheville and worked at that. I didn't know him. So we start hitting it off. We go to the Inner Harbor, when the Inner Harbor was still the Inner Harbor. And we're sitting there having a dinner, but we're also having some nice cordial drinks. And the time is going by, and they put me up at Cross Keys. They used to have a nice hotel there. You remember Cross Keys? And he said, yeah, so we're finishing our meal. We closed the place. It's probably 11 o'clock, had our drinks, and he said, well, he had a station car because he was the news director. I'll take you back to the Cross Keys, and I was going to leave on my flight left the next morning. But let's go to this place where it's still open. It's called Christopher's. Anyone ever heard of Christopher's up in Cockeysville? It used to be a meat factory, so to speak. And hey, I'm on the company's nickel, so to speak. I got the news director going to buy me more drinks, and so we get to Christopher's, and it's hot, and there's music, it's fun, it's dancing. We close the place down, and this news director lived in Moncton, and I said, John, you should not drive home the way because he definitely would have been pulled over DUI. You really shouldn't. And he goes, well, I go, look, there's a pull-out sofa and there's the bed. You could, since you're paying for it, I'll take the sofa. Why don't you stay, call your wife, he was a wife with 4 kids, and tell her that in the morning. I said, because you really shouldn't drive. So we go to Cross Keys. He gets on the phone, honey, I was with, and all of a sudden you hear click. Yeah. So I go on the sofa to there, and he goes to the bed. And I figure I'm never going to see this guy again because I'm taking a flight out. He's going to leave in the morning. So like it was 7 a.m. and I make believe I'm sleeping, and I hear him getting ready. He goes and leaves. So 2 or 3 weeks later, my agent says, that station you went to in Baltimore has a weather feature position that I think will be just your liking. Are you interested? And I said, well, maybe. And I thought, oh my God, the guy, the news director would be my boss. So I take the job. In the chapter in my book, talk about a great teaser headline. I had to sleep with my boss in Baltimore. What a great, isn't it great? Makes you want to read the rest of the chapter. So anyway, there's light at the end of this tunnel, folks. I'm now in Baltimore, and I couldn't believe it. After 10 years in TV, they were so happy to have me. I was making a lot less money than I was in New York, but I found out it took me all that time to have money. Chasing the old almighty dollar isn't as important as your sanity, your purpose in life, what you're trying to do with your life. So I get to Baltimore, and they said, yeah, you do weather. We want you to do the telethon. We do feature stories, so I can look at Tony's travels, yeah. So I hit the road, and I thought to myself, you don't have a place to call home. Where are you going to go now?
A.L.A. and Annie? What's the weather like tonight, A.L.A? Tonight?
Tonight it'll be raining spaghetti and meatballs. And brown and bread.
73.
Watch closely.
Man, you gotta, hey, Bob, you get enough TV time right now. There you go. All right, clear skies right through here. Like we were stuck in all that rain just a few days ago. Now we're gonna be stuck in high pressure for the next 2 days.
My great uncle Giuseppe, he was 95 years old, lived a wonderful life. However, the doctors said, oh, you know what? I almost forgot to, I have one other, I promise you something else. I'll do this quick and then I'm going to end with the other one. But anyway, so Uncle Giuseppe's not doing well. He wants to stay at home. He doesn't want to go to hospice or any type of care. His wife Angelina is there to comfort him and etc. So he's in and out of consciousness, just sleeping in bed. And one morning he smells pizzelles. Anisette and the pizzelles. His favorite, his go-to, right? So he said, I got pizzelles. So he kind of just gets out of bed on his hands and knees, and he's crawling, and he said, oh my goodness, he's following the aroma of the pizzelles, and he goes up to the kitchen table and does this, and all of a sudden, boom! Angelina's hand. Don't do you a touch, we're saving them for the guests after the funeral! Again, scripted and unscripted life, I realized you make your plans, my mother's famous saying, one day at a time, sweet Jesus, I wish you all good health and best of luck. Thank you so much.
This has been a Ron Savage production.